Tonight on KQED Newsroom. This week, Mayor London Breed announced a new push to end open-air drug dealing in San Francisco. And Oprah Book Club author Leila Mottley and Oakland Poet Laureate Dr. Ayodele Nzinga join us to talk about the East Bay stories they're bringing to light. Plus, we take a close-up look at a 30-foot Oakland mural honoring the women of the Black Panther Party. Coming to you from KQED headquarters in San Francisco this Friday, October 7th, 2022. Hello and welcome. This is KQED Newsroom, and I'm Priya David Clemens. This week, San Francisco Mayor London Breed called for more accountability for drug dealing. Breed said the residents need to support our police officers in their work to arrest criminals. Police Chief Bill Scott and District Attorney Brooke Jenkins both said they're working closely together to prosecute drug dealers while also helping people addicted to drugs. So will this latest push make any difference? Joining us now is KQED Politics and Government Senior Editor Scott Shafer, who spoke with Mayor Breed here at KQED this week. Scott, welcome to the show.
Good to be with you.
So I remember December last year seeing Mayor Breed standing on the steps of City Hall with outrage in her voice saying there's going to be more police presence in the Tenderloin and that we needed to all stop tolerating the bull crap that was destroying the city. So I think everybody kind of perked up and said, oh, she's really taking this seriously. She's using very strong language here. She's making some operational changes. But then it seemed like everything kind of faded away. Is there something different happening now?
Well, we have a new DA, and this is something that's going to be a priority for Brooke Jenkins and certainly the mayor. It's very personal for her. You know, she had a brother who struggled with addiction. He's now serving a 44-year prison sentence. She had a sister who died. And we just had statistics come out today from the San Francisco Health Department showing that over 600 people died on the streets of drug overdoses in San Francisco last year. And that's even down from the year before. So this is a huge problem. And
let me just add a stat that we've heard a few times. More people have died in San Francisco from drug overdoses than died from COVID during the heights of the epidemic. I mean, from the time it began till now.
Absolutely. And it's something that people see when they're walking around in Civic Center, the Tenderloin, and other parts of the city. And so it's a very visible problem, and it's a tough problem to solve. And so they are throwing more resources at it. The mayor held a press conference this week with the police chief and the DA and the new supervisor, Matt Dorsey, from that district, you know, saying we're all on the same page. We're really going to focus on this, make it a priority. But it is easier said than done.
All right, so there's a chance that some things may start to look different. I know DA Jenkins has said we didn't expect everything to change right away.
Yeah, and I think nobody's calling for like a return to the war on drugs, which many people would say was a big failure. But how do you get at the source of those drugs? Not the petty possession people that are just using them, but dealing them and coming in from outside San Francisco to sell these things on the streets.
Let's turn now to some new poll numbers that came out. This is election season, right? So the Berkeley IGS poll that just came out, it took a look at these sports betting measures. One in casinos, one online. Can you talk us through how people are responding to these measures?
Yeah, so these are two competing measures, I guess. Proposition 26 is being promoted by the tribal governments, and it would allow in-person betting on sports events at casinos owned by the tribes and also a few horse tracks throughout California. And support is very low, 31% support. 42% no. There's kind of a rule of thumb that this close to the election, you have to have above 50% support for something to pass. So Prop 26 is in big trouble, as is Proposition 27, which is different. It would allow online betting of sporting events on mobile phones and other things, but that's doing even worse. 53% no and 27% yes. And ironically, you know, so they have raised over $400 million for and against these two things. And ironically, people who have seen the ads are even less likely to support these measures than ones who haven't and aren't paying as close attention. So obviously all this money being spent on television is turning people off. It's confusing people. And I think people are just tired of seeing all these ads. I know I am.
And when you say this number, this huge number, let's not gloss over that. It actually makes this the most expensive campaign, these two put together, these two measures, the most expensive spending on campaigns in American history?
Yeah, I mean, you might as well say world history, right? Because we're the only country that has campaigns like this. So yes, it's totally blown past all the spending records on other ballot measures. And, these are big companies. The tribes also have a lot of money, but it just doesn't seem to be paying off for them with voters at all. If anything, it's counterproductive.
All right. Let's look at another piece of polling. This one's on care courts. So this is linked to the problems that we're seeing here in San Francisco. Governor Newsom has supported this. He was the one who brought this idea forward. And care courts would allow judges the power to order housing or treatment for people who struggle with addiction or severe mental illness.
Yeah, exactly. This is, I think, an acknowledgement that what we've been doing in the past, it just isn't working. And this is something that Democrats and Republicans agree on. I mean, if you look at this Berkeley IGS poll, you've got 76% support overall among likely voters, and that includes, a large number, about 69% of Republicans. So, they may be supporting those for different reasons, but nonetheless, I think, like I said, everyone agrees something needs to be done. And this passed through the legislature with a lot of bipartisan support. It's going to take a while, and I think that the trouble for the governor and for those who want to see a big change is this is going to take a while. I mean, there's only 7 or 8 counties that are going to begin to ramp up, and that's a year from now. San Francisco will be one of those first counties. But, you need to get treatment beds and all kinds of addiction services that, don't necessarily exist right now.
All right. And then let's turn to another topic that so many of us are feeling, the pain at the pump. The gas prices here are insane. We are talking about $2 more for a gallon of gas on average in California than the national average. How is it so much higher than the rest of the country?
It's crazy. I mean, part of it is we have higher standards for, emissions. And in fact, one of the things that the governor has done is he is allowing gas stations to begin selling the winter blend, which is dirtier, but it's also a lot cheaper, earlier than would ordinarily be the case.
And let's take a look at what he tweeted this week. He said gas prices are too high. 23 million Californians will be receiving up to $1,000 starting tomorrow. This will be the largest state tax rebate in the country. So that would be this week that is happening. Tell us about this money.
Yeah, so the money, the governor would like to link this to gas prices, but it really was intended by the legislature to just offset the cost of inflation, and really targeting it toward lower and middle income folks in California. There's about 18 million people that will be getting checks starting as ballots are landing, coincidentally or not. And so that money is from the surplus in the last year budget. And so, that's money that may not be around next year because the revenues are coming in more slowly, but it'll help offset some of these costs for gasoline and other things.
And are we thinking that this concern over gas prices is going to impact how people are voting?
Well, it could. I mean, I think that you've got these battling narratives. I mean, Republicans certainly want to focus on gas prices and inflation, the economy generally. Well, Democrats want to talk about abortion, choice, and other things that don't have to do with gas prices.
And Scott, before I let you go, we have to talk about the big debate we have coming up, October 23rd. October
23rd, the only debate between the two people running for governor, Gavin Newsom and State Senator Brian Daly. They've agreed to come here, and Marisa Lagos and I will co-moderate that debate. Should be interesting, lots to talk about with them, and they'll have a chance to talk to each other and, give voters a chance to see them side by side right before the election.
What a great opportunity. Scott, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oakland has a long history of notable authors, from Gertrude Stein and Jack London in the early 1900s to Amy Tan and Jack Vance more recently. We are speaking tonight with 2 contemporary authors from Oakland. Leila Mottley wrote Nightcrawling, which has been selected as an Oprah Book Club novel. Mottley was also a Youth Poet Laureate for Oakland and is just 20 years old. The city of Oakland also began an adult Poet Laureate program just last year, and our other guest is the inaugural poet. Dr. Ayodele Nzinga is not only an author, but also a director, actor, and educator. Leila and Ayodele join us now. Thank you so much for being here in studio with us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. So, Leila, let's start with the Youth Poet Laureate program in Oakland. You were the Youth Poet Laureate in 2018. Tell us a little bit about what you do as a Youth Poet Laureate.
You do a lot. I mean, it ranges from performing at events all over the Bay Area, often galas and different fundraisers where people ask you to go and perform a poem and kind of connect with the audience and bring people into journals and people soliciting poems, and really just kind of being a voice for the city and kind of sharing also the perspective of youth.
And Ayodele, you've had a longer career than Leila did when she started, as you've become the Poet Laureate for Oakland. What are you hoping to do with this platform in this inaugural position you're in?
It's a wonderful place to use my voice. I do have a really long artistic career, and I've formed some opinions as an educator and as a community advocate. So to be the inaugural poet actually gives me a louder microphone and a bigger audience, and so it's a great place to use my voice.
Leila, tell me how you got started as a writer.
I mean, I think I started writing the minute I learned how to. I have journals full of poems from when I was 6, and then I went into short stories, and then when I was 14 I wrote my first novel. So I think it's always been kind of something that felt natural to me. But I also think part of it is because I fell in love with reading.
And was it encouraged by your family?
Yeah, they love books too. My dad is a playwright, a screenwriter, and he always had a day job and then would go home and write. And so I kind of learned writing as a passion, as something you do for yourself.
And Ayodele, what about you? When did you first come to your love of writing?
A really similar experience. I actually don't remember being taught how to read and write. I'm sure it happened, but
You didn't just get it by osmosis?
But it seems like I've always read and that I've always written. I kept journals from a really, really young age. I was in forensics from elementary school, and I also share a love of reading. I'm a voracious reader.
I don't know what forensics is.
Forensics is speech, and oral interpretation was my initial lane. And so you would perform poetry. You would read and perform poetry from the poetic canon.
Well, I want to stick with that for a minute. And I want our audience to know a little bit more about you as well, because you not only hold a PhD in transformative education and change and an MFA in writing and consciousness, you're also a member of the Alameda County Hall of Fame. You founded Oakland's oldest North American African theater company, the Lower Bottom Playas.
Yes.
And you've written several books and articles. And one of the things I loved learning about you is that you also go by the moniker word slanger. So I am hoping that you can sling some words for us here today on the show. Would you be all right with that?
I would. I have a piece. I'm going to read a section of a piece. If you'd like to hear the whole piece, then you're going to have to wait until Black Freighter Press in San Francisco drops its new anthology called When We Exhale. This piece is also called When We Exhale. When we exhale, my ghost will reset the doomsday clock and finally rest. They've been hustling a while. There will be an audible click signaling creation, hope here again. The pendulum between right and wrong will hover over right till wrong forgets to be a thing, and that we understand or accept. We will forget scarcity, fear, and how to suffer endlessly. Fire and magnolias will fill the spaces those things take. We warm and smell like the waiting room in Olakun's garden. We rich, peaceful wisdom, radiantly at rest, just being when we exhale. The moral arc will declare nature is the law and reciprocity is justice. Jambalaya will be served, drumming will be allowed, and we will dance late into some night when our souls are full to filled, and the vibrations of Juba decompose all that ever came to eat the joy of another outright or in quiet violence with minor movements in serial aggressions.
Beautiful. Yeah, powerful. I feel that sense of exhaling a bit with that. Leila, what about for you as you hear this?
Yeah, it's stunning. I mean, poetry can transmit hope. It's vibrational. It's something you feel first, and that's what makes it so powerful. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
What was your purpose when you wrote that particular section?
It was actually a call for when we exhale, and the thought of holding one's breath for a really long time. breath has been a very, very black topic for the last few years. The absence of breath, I can't breathe.
Yeah.
Waiting to exhale goes back a bit. So the idea of being able to take a full breath, might that be the beginning of what freedom feels like? Being able to take a full breath.
Ayodele, you've said that everything you do boils down to one conversation. I want to read a quote that I heard from you. You said, "I am interested in being fully human, in thriving for everybody, and in particularly and especially for Black folk." How did that become your core story and message?
I think actually all artists only have one conversation. They just come at it from different perspectives. And I think that that's what was inscribed inside of me. I think that I work definitely in the continuum of the Black arts movement, and I very much consider myself to be engaged in ancestor work. I am part of a conversation that existed before I existed. I channel pain, joy, hope from a time before I existed, and I'm attempting very much to be a bridge to what comes next. I like to tell people I know what to do because I'm doing what was whispered in my ear right before I took my first breath. I came with assignments.
What a sense of purpose that must give you as you navigate through life. Leila, does that resonate with you? Did you feel like you've always known what your voice and your message and your purpose is?
I mean, I think it absolutely resonates with me. I think we're kind of born into this world with something we might not even know. And I think I didn't always know what my purpose was, but that's because this world distances ourselves, you know, from our core self from the minute we're born, and that's socialization, that's conditioning, and that's what happens when you live in a world that doesn't value kind of alignment with ourselves and with our like most honest truth. But I think that once I found writing, once I found books that I loved, I kind of came into this realization that I could kind of break this generational silence through words.
And you certainly did that in your book, Nightcrawling. So Nightcrawling is based on a true story that we know here in the Bay Area very well. It was a sex scandal which Oakland and Richmond police officers had inappropriate sexual relationships with an underage teenage girl named Celeste Guap. That's how she's called. She has another name that she was born with. And you looked at the media coverage that was happening at the time, and you didn't like what it was saying. You didn't like how that story was framed. And you wrote Nightcrawling in part as a way of saying there's a different perspective here. So can you tell us about what you saw that you didn't like, that felt out of alignment, and what you were hoping to do with your novel?
I mean, I was 13 or 14 at the time that that the case broke, and it wasn't just the media, it was also just kind of the common conversation around her sexual exploitation was like, let's focus on the police department, let's focus on how, you know, this might damage the relationship, the trust between the police department and the community, as though there was a foundation of trust in the first place. And I remember thinking, well, what about this girl? But also, what about, you know, the thousands of other girls and women whose stories never make it to that level of visibility, partially because there's nowhere to report to besides the police themselves. And so I kind of started to think of what does it mean to look beyond a headline, and when a news cycle moves on, how do we keep alive stories of women and girls, particularly Black women and girls, that are so often silenced.
I would love to hear if you could read a bit from your book as well, and we could share that with our audience too.
It's definitely a love story to Oakland too, so I'm going to read a portion of the description about Oakland. This is with Kiara, the main character, and her best friend Ale. Ale loops her arm around my shoulders and pulls me in, lifting her skateboard into the sky and skying. "Ain't it beautiful?" she shouts into the open air, and I twist my head around to take it all in. The construction still lines the alley, bang-banging wood into more wood, and I swear it's like the city is spiraling around us. Skyline popping up a glorious portrait of windows and wheels that don't gotta be as large as they are. Ale's arm around me makes me wanna skip, lift my knees to the sky, the way we sway together. Oakland doesn't operate on a grid. We wind here, the streets pulling us closer to the bay, to where salt melts with street and bikes turn to trucks that moan and thrust forward at every light. Then they push us back toward the buildings, where shouts line the perimeter of the sidewalks, and with Ale here, I don't bother trying to decipher what they're saying or who they're saying it to. Just let the noises scatter, like chunks of asphalt out the road. I find my favorite murals, new swirls added to the backgrounds, bordered in tags.
It's so descriptive. Those moments and the ways in which you've chosen to put some of those metaphors and pictures together. Seems you've made Oakland come alive in a fresh way to a place that we all know and that you have loved for a long time. How did writing about Oakland factor into your story in terms of it being a character in itself?
I mean, it was so important. I think that we're often given a very binary view of Oakland. Oakland either as this like dangerous, crime-ridden city, or as a new city, a newly desirable place to be. And neither of those encompass what this city is and the Oakland I grew up in. And so I wanted to kind of capture that and look at the vibrance of the city, but also the nuance, how you can love a place that doesn't always love you back. And so in writing this, I hoped that we could kind of expand the ideas of Oakland that I think we hold in our kind of cultural framework around the city.
Ayodele, what about for you? How has Oakland factored into your work?
I live currently in the first community I ever lived in on purpose. I have a sort of love affair going on with the idea of place and continuity and why it is we, especially Black people, would pour ourselves into a place here. The very idea of communities being remade right before our eyes with gentrification. The fact that I have a series of articles called "No Gentrification, No Resting Place." So I look at the fact that I drew sort of a line in the sand here and decided to call this home and wanted to be from here. I wanted to rep the Bay. I wanted to rep the town. And I find Oakland entirely worthy of all that. It is storied and rich and emblematic of marginalized and red-lined spaces across the globe. It's my Cité Soleil, it's my Joburg, it's the center of the universe.
What do you have coming up next? Tell me about the work that is in front of you still to do.
Oddly enough, it's a great segue. I am in an international installation that considers space and development and what it means to be marginalized. It's called In the Banlieues. It opened in Saint-Denis, France, and it is now installed at Spur in Oakland and at Studio 17, it's Spur in San Francisco and Studio 17 in Oakland. And I will be in both of those places, San Francisco on November the 2nd and Oakland on October 22nd, performing live.
Thank you. And Leila, what about for you?
I have events around the Bay and the world coming up over the next few months, but I'm also writing and working on a poetry collection that should be out in the next year or so.
Okay. And you were at college at Smith and you're taking a little break, and
Yeah.
I know some have been wondering where you went to school here in Oakland as well.
Yeah, I went to OSA, which is the Oakland Arts School. Yeah, I think it became very kind of impossible to tour and be in college at the same time. But I definitely had a foundation from art school to kind of help me lean into my identity as an artist.
All right. Leila Mottley, Dr. Ayodele Nzinga, thank you both for being here and for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you.
Tonight, our Something Beautiful is also in Oakland. The West Oakland Mural Project highlights the vital role women played in the revolutionary Black Panther Party. Let's take a look. Well, I feel empowered and inspired. I hope you do too. That is the end of our show for tonight. You can find KQED Newsroom online or on Twitter, or email us at knr@kqed.org. And you can always reach me on social media at Priya D. Clemens. Thank you for joining us. We will see you right back here next Friday night. Have a great weekend.